Mr. Grayson of Florida. At the end of the bill, before the short title, add the following new section. None of the funds made available by this act may be used to compel a journalist or reporter to testify about information or sources that the journalist or reporter states in a motion to quash the subpoena that he has obtained as a journalist or reporter and that he regards as confidential.
Pursuant to the order of the House today, the gentleman from Florida and a member opposed each control 5 minutes. Chair recognizes the gentleman from Florida.
I regret bringing this up at 10:30 at night. I apologize for that because this is a weighty matter and I think it deserves fair consideration. I hope that we're not all too tired to deny this question the attention that it deserves. The purpose of this amendment is to raise the possibility of a federal shield law that corresponds to the shield law already in place in 49 states, but not at the level of the federal government. A shield law is legislation designed to protect a reporter's privilege or the right of news reporters to refuse to testify as to information and sources of information obtained during the news gathering and dissemination process. In short, a reporter should not be forced to reveal his or her source, and that is in fact the law in 49 states, the only exception being Wyoming. This has come up in court cases at the federal level, at the Supreme Court level, beginning with the 1972 case, Brandsburg v. Hayes, which I think poses this question in the microcosm. In that case, a reporter wanted to inform his readers about the nature of the drug hashish, and he realized that the only way to go about that was to find and interview people who had actually used the drug hashish. So he did that. And after he published his article, relying upon these two confidential sources, at that point, he was subpoenaed to provide those sources, compromising their identity and compromising the principle of protecting your sources. This is an issue that comes up from time to time, often at the state level, occasionally at the federal level. Some of us may remember that in the case of the Plame affair, the CIA leak scandal, a reporter was asked to release the name of the person to whom he had received the leak regarding Valerie Plame. Reporters were asked in general, who are your sources with regard to this leak? One of the reporters, Judith Miller of the New York Times, was jailed for 85 days in 2005 for refusing to disclose her source in the government probe. At this point, under current law, journalists are in a quandary. They realize the need to protect their sources. That right is recognized in 49 states, but it's not codified at the federal level. So what I seek to do at this late hour today is to do just that. I think that this is a very important principle, as Brandsburg pointed out, that springs from the foundation of our law. The Constitution in the First Amendment provides for freedom of speech and of the press. It is completely incongruous to say we have freedom of the press, but the federal government can subpoena your sources and put them and you in prison, if you don't comply. This is something that should have been handled perhaps years, if not decades ago. It falls upon us tonight, at this late hour, to try to handle ourselves. I respectfully submit this amendment as being a much-needed and long-delayed clarification that the federal government treats this matter no differently than 49 states now do, and therefore I ask for support on this amendment. I reserve the balance of my time.
Gentleman reserves. For purposes, the gentleman from Virginia rise.
Strike the requisite number of words.
Gentleman is recognized for 5 minutes.
I rise in opposition to the amendment. It's significant change. The authorizers ought to be looking at this. This is not something that you put on an appropriation bill at 10:35. I listened to the gentleman. A lot of what he said I seem to agree with, but I think you have to really look at this, and the authorizer, you have to have hearings. So for those reasons, I urge a no vote and yield. And I yield to the gentleman from Virginia, Mr. Goodlatte.
Mr. Goodlatte.
I thank the gentleman for yielding, and I share the gentleman from Florida's interest and support for shield laws as well, but I don't believe that this has been carefully vetted. There are implications here about exactly who has the right to make the determination about whether or not funds could or could not be used. The way the language reads suggests that maybe it's the reporter that would have that right rather than a court. So to me, this is not the best way to go about doing this, and we will continue to work on SHIELD law legislation in the House Judiciary Committee, which has passed out reforms of SHIELD laws in the past, and we'll continue to work on it, but I must oppose this amendment in these circumstances. I don't think this is the right place to legislate something as complicated as this issue.
Well, I reclaim my time. I thank the gentleman for his comments.
The gentleman would yield for a second when you finish.
I yield to the gentleman.
I just want to, without claiming my own time, support the thrust of this proposed amendment, which is that we should provide a shield. The idea that in 2005 a reporter was jailed for over 85 days is wrong, and we do want to have a freedom. We have a constitutional responsibility to protect the freedom of the press, but I agree with the chairman. We don't want to do it on an appropriations bill at 10:30 at night. We want to make sure that we're clear about what we're doing. So I would oppose the amendment under those circumstances. And I yield. I thank the gentleman for yielding me time.
Gentleman from Virginia yields back.
I yield back.
Gentleman yields back. Gentleman from Florida is recognized.
Thank you. I want to point out that the Supreme Court decision that we're talking about here was decided in 1972. There have already been hearings. There's been plenty of draft legislation. It's hard enough to get anything voted on around here. It's time to vote on this. After 42 years since the Supreme Court first addressed this, we do not have this body on record as saying whether or not there should be a federal shield law. I understand the reservations that have been expressed, but the fact is the time is now, and that the reporters in this country have waited long enough. It's time to be fair and show fealty to the First Amendment and to pass this amendment tonight.
Gentleman yields back.
Yes.
Gentleman yields back. The question is on the amendment offered by the gentleman from Florida. Those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed say no. No. In the opinion of the chairs, the no has it. The amendment is not agreed to.
I ask for a recorded vote.